All right, good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my good friends, Chris and Sandy and Karen and Catherine. And today we're going to talk about Tao Te Ching Verse 71 as interpreted in Wayne Dyer's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao, and chapter 71 of his book. But before we get going, I want to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then for those of you who are watching, I just want to let you know there will be links below this video where you can jump on our Facebook group. You can connect with us on our website. You can see all the links to our replays, all that kind of thing. So, okay, guys, so go ahead and jump out, introduce yourselves, and then we'll get going on this verse.
Good morning. I thought you moved the thing over to me, sorry. I'm Karen Lohoff. I'm in the Valley of the Sun in Arizona, and I'm so excited that my door is open still. We had kind of a cooler morning. I think today's, I never know if we're looking at our last semi-cool day of the year, but I think it's supposed to only be 97 or 90 something anyway today, so excited.
Good morning, Sandy Root here. Sort of in the same situation here in Miami. We had a cool day out of nowhere the other day, and I'm like, I didn't think we'd get any of those anymore. So it's getting humid here. But good to see you all. I don't remember the last time I've been on here. My Saturdays have been busy, and I actually had a yoga event I was supposed to go to this morning, but I canceled because I'm like, I just need a sandy day and see my peoples again on the hangout. So it's good to see you all.
We're glad to have you back with us. It's always a pleasure when you can make it on. This is Catherine Klimbit in Boulder, Colorado.
Let's see, I guess I'll go before our host here. I'm Christopher Camp from Chicago, a regular. I don't see anyone new on here with us today. Glad to be here, though. Oh, except Sandy's kind of like a new face. I don't remember who you are.
You're so funny, Chris. We always remember Sandy. My goodness. That's right, because you're so awesome. I'm glad that everybody's having good weather. We're having nice weather here too, and which is why I decided I want to jump out here on my deck and experience some of this beautiful weather while I was talking on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And that's one of the things I miss about when I was in Georgia, is being able to be outside and have like this beautiful green background. But I have a little lake out here, and I don't know if you can hear the water fountain going in the lake or not, but it's a beautiful thing to have. It's that pretty water sound in your neighborhood. And luckily, the geese are not out here going bananas like they normally are, because they're like, I don't know, constantly at each other's throats because they have, I don't know, a couple flocks of babies out there. So hopefully they won't get too excited while we're here. But while we're talking. But anyway, so who wants to read verse 71? And Catherine, did you happen to get it, to do the screenshot of it, or no? We've tried that a couple times. Maybe I could pull it up on a screenshot. Oh, there we go. And I'm not, okay. Perfect, awesome, thank you. Okay, who wants to read it?
I will.
Okay.
Knowing ignorance is strength. Ignoring knowledge is sickness. Only when we are sick, I think there's a typo there. Only when we are sick of our sickness shall we cease to be sick. The sage is not sick, but is sick of sickness. That is the secret of health.
Huh, you're right. I did have a typo. Sorry about that. I try and triple check it before I make those things. I'm gonna make
Where
another
is
one
it?
that fix
What word was it?
it said sick or our sickness, not sick of our sickness. So it was of instead of or instead of. So I'll fix that typo.
I didn't even see that.
So sick of our sickness. This is an interesting verse for being so short. Knowing ignorance is strength, ignoring knowledge is sickness. What do you guys think we're talking about in this verse? Or what do you think Lao Tzu is talking about?
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's talking about all areas of life, from health to finance to personal relationships. I think it includes all of it. He's broad. These verses are very broad, sweeping. They cover everything.
For me, when I read it before even reading the commentary from Wayne Dyer, it's, when and then I just saw Wayne Dyer's thing. It's the same thing for me, what he just said about like addictive behavior. When you're sick of your sickness, then you cease to be sick. So, he's saying how he was addicted. And, I used to have an alcohol addiction, and it got to a point where, similar to Wayne here, that, I was sick of it. I was sick of my sickness, which was the alcohol. And that's the moment when I think for me, that's what the phrase meant initially. And you can take that anywhere in the world. And like Chris said, even in our society, it's going to take all of us to really be sick of, certain things going on in the world for our planet to heal, for humanity to heal. So yeah, it can take it on so many different levels.
Wow. This is so profound with all of you talking about the things that you're talking about. I was seeing this in such a narrow way, and it's really helpful to expand it on out like that. I've mentioned being bipolar, which I know is kind of a like sticking the hot coals out there for everybody. But it's curious to me, mental illness is generally, the big hand is the genetics, and I've certainly observed that in my family. And now that we know of epigenetics, and we know that really genetics is not at all what we learned about, it kind of turns everything on its head. And I have been doing some sorting of my gosh, I hope this fan isn't too loud, sorry. Some sorting of my life events and wondering, what plays into what overlaps what. And if I ever come out from under that, I'll share with you. but this is really helpful. I can tell already that this is going to be a very illuminating hour. Thank you all.
Now the second sentence got me thinking too. Ignoring knowledge is sickness. Because I was actually talking to a friend this week about, I guess, something similar where you can, through personal work or spiritual work or whatever, you can gain some knowledge about yourself, about maybe new awarenesses or insights in life and in your own life. And, you know, many times it requires a shift internally and externally, or however, which way. And oftentimes we may ignore what we need to do that, because it may take a little bit of a struggle to get through to where we want to be on the whatever higher spiritual level, or whatever, clearing some bad thought or recycled thought that we've had all our life that's not serving us. So, you know, and I find that, you know, I've had moments where I know, okay, this is the knowledge I've received, and, you know, there's been moments where I know that's the truth, but I'll ignore it because whatever, I'm too busy, I don't have time to do that. And I can see how that's a sickness, because we think you know, that things will still be okay if we ignore that knowledge, like whatever, we're used to the status quo and the way that we're living our life, and that change is sort of a fear too, a fear of the unknown. But I've seen those moments where I have ignored the knowledge, and it's kept me stuck. And then, you know, I'll go into my life again, and blah, blah, blah. And then it'll come back again, like, boom, like, hey, you didn't wake up to this yet. I'm not teaching you anything else, you know, like whoever's speaking to me, the angels, the creator. I'm not giving you any more knowledge till you really implement this in your life, kind of thing. So it's like this sort of sickness too. And I think a lot of people in the world are, you know, maybe ignoring knowledge because it's just easier to be the way they are, or, you know, it's hard to change, or it takes work to change. So, or to take the stuff that we learn to better ourselves. And so there's that sickness when we ignore knowledge. I really like that line too, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm totally right there with you, Sandy. I think that's a huge thing. Is it's like, you know, when like anybody who goes through a recovery program, I mean, the first step is to not acknowledge that you have a problem in the first place. And that's a huge thing, because I think that a lot of times we know we have a problem, but we just are not ready to deal with it. And so we ignore it as if it's not there, or if it's not in existence. We're just going to ignore it and hope it goes away. But that in and of itself is what he's referring to, is that sickness of, you know, the ignorant, you know, ignoring that knowledge that we know there's a problem. And I think as we continue to do these kinds of work, as we become more aware of the different things that are happening in our existence, and then realizing those things and then making changes, is how we overcome that illness, if you will. I mean, I love the fact that he uses the word sickness. You know, he could have used like crazy or something, you know. I mean, how many times it would feel like, oh, my world is just spinning out of control, I don't know what's going on, and but, you know, realistically, it's just when we just acknowledge that there's these issues, then we can start working on them. And I feel like that's what he's kind of referring to in this, is when we get sick of dealing with all this crap that we have complete control over, and we like to act like we don't. We like to be in this victim mentality, or I don't know that I say we as a people, not we as in us on this thing, because we obviously don't, because we're working on it. But I think that I like how he says knowing ignorance is strength too, because then you acknowledge that you don't know everything. And I think that when you get stuck in that thought that you know everything, or you know everything about some situation, is that you close yourself off from other possibilities, other solutions, other opportunities, all that kind of thing too. I mean, also, even if we look at it just on a health side, when we go to a doctor and the doctor says, this is the problem, this is the solution, you know, you definitely have this issue going on in your body, and the only solution in the world for you is to get on this drug and be on it for the rest of your life. I think that's ridiculous. And instead for doctors to be more open to other possibilities and say, okay, you know, well, we know there's something going on with you. but we don't know what it is. But if we start examining all these possibilities, not only just the things that they say cause illness, but things we haven't completely discovered yet, maybe we open ourselves up to other possibilities of healing. And I think that works across all different things, whether we're talking about physical illness, mental illness, difficulties in our lives, whatever it is.
I love that you brought up healing and health, because it's interesting with patients this week and friends, like that has been coming up a lot. Like 2 people I've talked to this week where one had a brain injury from an accident, told he would never walk again. Another guy, some accident where he was paralyzed, told he could never walk again. Both of them are healthy walking because they didn't listen to the doctors. They found their own solutions and their own willpower and motivation, and went out to help others start doing that. And with patients in my office, this theme has been coming up all week. Like, I'm taking this medication, and then I'm taking this one for those side effects, and then this other one for those side effects. And I'm like, and they're like, And so, then they're getting frustrated with the doctors, because one was saying, I asked my doctor if I could use a neti pot or if I could go for colonic, if that was a good idea. And the doctor's like, what's a colonic? What's a neti pot? And so it's like, and then one of my friends told her doctor, like, I'm not taking this medication. I have my own plan. I'm taking these vitamins, blah, 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 blah. And the doctor sort of ended up agreeing with her. And she's like, I'm just going to go back to the doctor in a few weeks and show her that I got my levels down by myself without the medication. So I feel like a lot of people are really waking up to their self-healing. And because that's so many people this week are really like, I'm doing this myself, so it's good to see that. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I started reading originally, Sandy, you had given me the suggestion to read that Mind Over Back Pain book by Dr. Sarno, I think it is. And so I picked up another one of his books, and I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to go grab it here in a minute. But he's talking about not only back pain, but other things and other illnesses and whatnot. And he's exploring all of these different cases where people have overcome, like, neck whiplash and stomach ulcers and fibromyalgia. I mean, all of these different things, that back pain, ankle, knee, all of these things that we think are just, okay, you're getting old and that's what's supposed to happen. And but he's discovering that it's not, there isn't like a physical, there's not really something going on there. We just like manifest it. It's like we make it happen within ourselves instead, because we think that's what it's supposed to be. And I realized that with my back pain, I've had back issues since as long as I can, really remember consciously knowing about it or realizing about it. And when I started studying or started looking back on my life to try and figure out the real cause of that back pain that I've had, is that I realized that for whatever reason, my mom had started taking me to the chiropractor when I was like young. I mean, I don't know, maybe 13, 12, in that kind of tween age. And I never really fully understood why she had done that, but I came to kind of this realization that was probably because somebody at school said, oh, she's got scoliosis, that whole thing. They love to identify kids with scoliosis. And so my mom had been taking me to the chiropractor when I was young. And so I didn't participate in gym. I had a doctor's excuse not to participate in that. And they always told me it was like this low back thing. And so my whole adult life, I've been dealing with this low back pain, whether I have had pain medicine, whether I have gone to the chiropractor, whether I've done physical therapy, yoga, exercise, all these different things. And I go through these waves where sometimes I have issues and sometimes I don't. And when I read that book, and he was talking about how they've kind of discovered that a lot of these pain problems that we have are actually caused by our own kind of, they say stress, but of course stress is like so many different things. But they say that like ulcers, once they discovered that ulcers were caused by stress, as people were basically realized they were doing it to themselves, then that illness started to become less prominent in our world. And by recognizing that that was what the problem was, is that they started to have less problems with that, right? So then there started to be a whole nother pandemic or epidemic of other kinds of pain, and it was like that's when the back pain thing started happening more. And now people are starting to realize, oh, maybe it's not what I thought it was. And so then all these people are having fibromyalgia, and so we have these waves of these different illnesses that are happening. And he's sitting here talking about how he believes, and through his studies, he's realizing this is something that we're just manifesting on ourselves. And but anyway, as far as my back pain goes, is that I have discovered if I just not ignore the problem, that's not what I'm getting at, but if I talk to my back as if, oh, just get over it, you don't really hurt, it's just your imagination, then I have less issues with it. It's like the craziest thing, but I feel like a lot of it is just kind of like this programming that I've had from being a young person up until now, that I've been playing. If you exert yourself too much, if you stand too long, all these, blah, 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 the list goes on and on of all the reasons why my back should hurt, plus you're getting old, And when I ignore that stuff, I have less issues with my back, I mean, how crazy is that? I'm sorry, I know I rambled for a while.
I was thinking how much fun I had a couple nights ago. I'm kind of a weird person, a person who, for whatever reason, grew up kind of with the idea that it's not okay to have fun, and being a person who's listened to Abraham Hicks for as many years as I have, and when the words come out of the mouth about having fun, like it's a good thing, I think, who says that? Where does that come from? But so this might seem like a strange way to have fun, but I have passed up this man through videos for a long time. I've listened, here and there, and I'm just not really patient with having to try and, understand words that aren't totally clear to me. But I don't know. I changed my mind, and so I spent kind of an evening listening to Sadhguru. I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but I caught him on talking to the United Nations. I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. And apparently 2016, and sometimes I butcher stories because I, what was important to me at the time isn't, retelling it, and then I go, well, yeah, I think it was 2016, was named by the United Nations the year of yoga. And I know I'm not being really clear about how that was voiced. But he spoke for a considerably long period of time. I'm thinking maybe an hour. And it was fascinating, the things that he talked about, the things that he has accomplished, and how yoga in his mind is not something, of course it began in India, but he says it's not India's product, or India's gift. I mean, this is for the world. And then there was at least half an hour of hearing other people in the United Nations, and one was actually, a translator was behind her and speaking at the same time. There are so many people like this individual who can bring to the earth, literally to the earth, things that people can use as alternatives to doctors. I've never been particularly fond of going to the doctor, watching my mother go through the things that she went through. As I was growing up, I just kind of gathered a disdain, and it's like Sandy's experience, you say something to them and they go, huh, what's that? And you think, where have you been? I mean, I realize I've got, what, 12, 18 years of training. Who did they go to? Where did they get their stuff? Because it's such gobbledygook. It's such rote, ideas. And
You
anyway,
talking about doctors now, Karen?
I'm talking about doctors. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What did you think I was talking about? Did
No,
I
that's
said?
it. That's it. I'm just making sure I'm following.
I'm glad you are, because I wouldn't want to say that about yoga. I wouldn't want to say that about things that I'm not clear on. So I'll stop for the moment. But thank you, Chris.
No, it's all good. Yeah, no, you were saying that you listen to doctors, and sometimes it sounds like even though they have so much information, it's like it doesn't make common sense. Something like this.
Yeah, and the sad thing I've learned is that sometimes, it must be easier to lie and just to say, I've said things like, my understanding about doing this is that it can cause thus and so disease. Oh no. And I'm thinking, what you think? You think I don't have any access to any research? You don't think I have the ability to check things on my own? I mean, it's like, how can I keep coming to you if you're going to tell me things like that? You're just going to blow it off. But I find a lot of times that's, I don't know, that's just what happens.
Yeah, that's a little frustrating.
Trust me, gorgeous girl, you are not hidden. At least not for me. Although you did kind of disappear. I thought I need to leave on a trip now, but you're back.
I don't know, maybe had like an internet fluctuation or something, but yeah. Oh, we see you. We see you. It's the doctors, and I feel so much confliction with the whole medical industry, because I know they're doing the best that they can do with what they have to work with, and all the bureaucracy that they have to deal with, and I'm sure they're working long hours and they're trying to keep up with things as best they can, but it's frustrating because they weren't taught everything they should have been taught, I think, in medical school in the first place. I feel like they were just taught varying what healing is, and so many of them just get this kind of, I don't know, God complex or something, and think that they already know everything. And again, it brings us back to this, if you realize you don't know everything, then it gives you a better position of helping people than it does if you just think you know everything. And ignoring all the other possibilities doesn't help it at all either. But it's frustrating because for those of us who are studying all the different alternative not all of them, for those of us who consider those options, I'm thank goodness I don't really have any illnesses that I have to deal with. Although I say that, maybe I do. If I went to the doctor, they'd probably tell me I have all kinds of shit wrong with me, which would be really frustrating, but I keep thinking about this whole, the mind-body connection. And if I have these pains and aches in my body because that's what I think I'm supposed to have, then every time something else comes up, I start to examine why it is that I think that I have that problem. What's causing me to have that problem. It's like when I have aches and pains in my ankles, what the first thing that pops up in my head is, oh yeah, I sprained my ankle way back when, and that's not helpful. That's not helpful for me to remember that I sprained my ankle, because my next thought after that is, I don't care. My ankles are stronger than they've ever been. That's my attitude towards it. And when I did sprain my ankle, I absolutely said to myself, I'm like, I refuse to be one of those people who thinks that my ankles are going to be more sprainable now because they've been sprained before. Because how many of you have heard that before? If you sprain your ankle, you're more likely to sprain it again in the future. I've heard that saying, and I refuse to believe it. I'm like, no, that's not true, because I'm going to exercise my ankles more so that they're stronger than they were, so that I don't sprain them as likely, you know? And so, you know, it's like every time I have some little thing that pops up in my body, I try and examine what belief it is that I have that is causing me to have that pain or that discomfort or that irritation or whatever it is in the first place. And, you know, I've discovered that there are these things from my past that make me, you know, either A, it was because my mom always used to say blah, 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 or B, I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out, you know, whatever it is. And, but it's interesting because I feel like the more that I examine those things, then one problem will kind of disappear, something else will pop up, and I feel like it's my brain or my body or my something going, haha, you don't know what this one is yet, so I'm going to mess with you here instead, you know, until you figure that out. I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, she figured us out, so we can't do that anymore. Now we have to do something different. I don't know.
It's funny. Yeah, somehow that all reminded me, you know, when where it's like this, I guess a lot of people have lost touch with their own bodies, that they can heal their own bodies, that they can really listen and intuit what's going on a lot of the times. And, you know, Wayne in here is talking about the emotions too. And, you know, some of us have been bringing that up, you know, that a lot, the mind-body connection, and like the book from Dr. John Sarno, you know, the stuff in our mind manifests in our body. You know, there were some times recently where I've been really angry, and I'm like, okay, Sandy, you can't put this in your body, like really being aware, like, you know, okay, release it, but, you know, don't get it stuck in somewhere in your body. But it reminded me when you were just talking, Samantha, that when I was a kid, I would get, you know, occasional headaches, and, you know, my mom would be, I take a pill or whatever, but I'd be like, oh, I already pulled it out, you know, so I would actually like just envision myself. I was probably 7, 8 years old when I started doing this, and I just like envision pulling the headache out, and I'd see like a blob of light, and then I'd just throw it like at the earth or somewhere, and it was gone. And so my mom's like, what? You pull out your headache? I'm like, yeah, it's gone. And I did this all through high school and college, and friends would be like, take a pill. I'm like, no, I pulled it out, and it sort of made them look at me strange. But then some people tried it when they had a headache, or if someone had a headache, I'm like, just try pulling it out. So I think, you know, and we can all find our own ways to heal. Like maybe that doesn't work for everybody. Maybe there's a different way for people to tap into how to heal themselves. And then speaking of that book, it reminded me too, the Healing Your Back Pain, you know, talking to my body at that time when I had the back pain, it was hard for me to do yoga or cardio. And when I was doing it, after reading that book, I would just envision oxygen and blood going to that, or telling my body like all the blood and oxygen is going to my low back now. And that really helped a lot. Just intending the energy and the blood and oxygen to go there made my workout immediately like so much better. And the pain was gone within a couple weeks. And I had an insight while reading that book one night. I read it before bed, and then I woke up in the middle of the night with like, oh, like some memory from childhood that I was angry about, that I had forgotten about. And I thought of the memory, and I'm like, okay. And then I went back to sleep, and in the morning my back pain was significantly less. It was like that anger from that childhood moment of, no, you can't do this, you have to do this, because it was a big impact, like a big path change in my life, that I held that in my back. And so it's so amazing, you know, how connected our mind and body, and really if we tune in how much we can heal our own self. And, you know, our society and the way that doctors are functioning in it really take or make people perceive a lot that they can't do this themselves, that their body needs to be taken care of by someone else. But ultimately we can take care of everything ourselves, I believe. Or, you know, doctors are useful for millions of things for sure, but there's things, especially if we catch them early on and we're aware to say, okay, I'm not going to trap this in my body, or this or that, to to really stop a lot of illness in ourselves.
Yeah, that's good, Sam. I was just totally about doctors. Yeah, this does really relate to healing ourselves, and like, you're talking about doctors. I think of Western medicine and think about Eastern medicine too, like that you do, Sandy. And it's kind of associated with wellness. And when you go to the doctor, it's associated with sickness. And I have this thing where I like quite a bit, like through my 20s and 30s, I used to get pharyngitis, some type of really heavy sore throats, where my immune system would go down from drinking or not eating right or whatever, So then I'd have it, and I'd go into the health food store, which I don't go a lot of times to the health food store. I'll go to the regular store. So then when I'd go to the health food store, I'd be buying like 4 or 5 different remedies, healthy remedies. And I'd say to myself, how come every time I go to the health food store, I'm sick? This doesn't make sense to me. So I wasn't, sick enough of my sickness to make myself well,
I had a thought recently because I started reading a book on Ayurveda, and I had been reading the book by John Sarno. I'm going to run in there and grab that book here in just a minute so I can remember what it's called. But I had this kind of light bulb moment where I was like, what if we have it completely backwards? What if we have all of this illness stuff so completely backwards, is that we think that if you do such and such, it's going to cause blah, blah, blah. For instance, if you stand too long, it's going to cause pain in your legs, or pain in your feet or whatever, because you have to, you have to work this really tiring job and you have to stand there all day. And because you stand there all day, it makes your legs hurt. Well, what if that's not what it is? What if it's the other way around, as you believe that because you stand long, you're going to have this pain, and so therefore you manifest the pain so that you can go, see, I told you if you stand too long, it's going to hurt, and if that in and of itself is maybe we cause these things to happen in ourselves because of our emotions about what we have to do. So if we don't like going to our job, or we don't like having to sit at a computer for hours on end, or if we don't like having to do something, is then we look out into the world and we say, oh, well, they say that if you stand too long at a job on a hard concrete floor that your legs are going to hurt. Well, now I have this leg pain because I'm making myself have this leg pain because that's the belief that I have, because I'm grumpy about having to go to work in the first place, or, I don't know. And how many different things can we look at in that way, identify what we think is supposed to be the cause of the problem, dig a little deeper to find out why we don't like doing that, whatever it is, and see if maybe we're causing our own problem to begin with. We're like manifesting it to be that proof that, see, I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. I don't know if that made any sense, but let me know.
Catherine's kind of quiet over there. Got any thoughts, Catherine?
Well, I've been sick of my sickness since about the second minute of it for the last 12 years, and I don't seem to be able to change it. So I don't know what to say. I absolutely believe that the body holds traumas. I've experienced that, even just recently. I was having some really severe pain in an organ that isn't even in my body anymore. But like and it was so puzzling as it was happening, because I'm like, this is like phantom pain that people have when their arm is cut off and their arm is not there, because it was it was pain in my uterus that I was feeling, but I don't have a uterus anymore. And so I was like puzzled when it was happening. And I was asking my body, you know, what is this from? And I went back to a memory that really I hadn't thought of for years and years and years. And it was my second child that I lost, and I had to go to the hospital, and the dick of a doctor tried to do a DNC on me without any kind of anesthesia or anything, just by having people hold me down. And so what I was feeling in this uterus that was no longer there was him scraping. I could feel him scraping the inside of my uterus when he was trying to make sure all the afterbirth and everything was out. And then, interestingly enough, you know, so when I bring up that thought, there's definitely some anger there, because he really was very brutal and sent me home, and I almost bled to death, and then I had to be put back in the hospital and have the whole thing done right, you know. But there was also, in the midst of all that, there was grief that I really never spent much time with either. I was trying to survive at the time, and so losing the child, like I didn't grieve losing my son. And so after this scraping of the uterus pain came up, and I asked my body, where is that coming from? And then I had that memory, and then I was thinking, wow, you know, that could be holding some keys to some of the stuff going on with me. I really need to explore that further. And then, like, just a couple of days later, and I don't know how long it's been there, or I don't know if it just like manifested, but I thought it was almost hilarious that just a few days later, I've been doing some kind of semi push-ups, and I was kind of sore, and I was kind of massaging myself, and as I was massaging, I decided to go ahead and check my breast, and I found a lump in my breast. And so, of course, my feeling about that is, you guys know, I don't have fear of the C word, you know, necessarily. Like, there's so many cures for it and all of that. And so I immediately went on some remedies that I know that would be helpful in that situation, and was fully confident that in less than 2 weeks that would be gone. You know, I mean, absolutely fully confident, and it's not gone. So 3 weeks later, it's not gone. So we're still working on it. I'm going to add some different things, but it was just so interesting to me as that third party entity watching all of this happen, that I have this memory of this grief, and then suddenly, you know, I have this thing in my boob, and the grief thing was connected to a child, you know, and the boob breastfeeding connection. I don't know. I just was like, wow, this is really interesting and crazy. And you know, my doctors, you guys know, I have had issues with my gut before, and I have to go in and have things cut out there. And so my doctors kind of freaked out, and they're like, well, this could be secondary, and, you know, you got to get a biopsy, and you got to get this, and you got to get that. And I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not. You know, you're not going to stick a needle into it. My body has done an amazing job of solidifying.
We lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I can't hear you anymore, Catherine. I don't know if you're
Sorry
still.
about that. I dropped off and then I couldn't hear anybody, so I was just waiting for it to catch back up. But yeah, so my body has done an amazing job of, you know, solidifying this thing, and you don't just go poking holes into it and like letting it, whatever it is, get all into your body, you know. And so I actually decided I wasn't going to tell any family members except my son, because he he's more, you know, he doesn't try to force me to do things I don't want to do. And of course, when I told him, then he started trying to force me into that, and I was like, no. And I actually called, like, and I found out how much the test was and all of that, and then I showed him how that money could be put into remedies, you know. So why do you, if it would be treated the same way anyway, you know what I mean? So, because there's no way I would ever do the Western medicine treatment for some things like that. So if it's a cyst, if it's just a, you know, whatever it is, it's still, I would treat it the same way. And but it's interesting because, you know, I like to tell myself I have complete control over shit, and and yet, you know, there's things that don't heal, and there's things that come up, and, you know, there's remedies that work for everybody. And then, like you were talking about the ulcers, Samantha, you know, they actually found out that ulcers, probably 99.9% of them, are caused by a bacteria called helicobacteria or something like that. Now, if you're stressed out, it drops your immune system, which would make your body more susceptible to getting an ulcer from this bacteria that some people have that doesn't cause them any problems, and other people have and it causes them problems. So, you know, there is a stress connection there. There's no doubt. But the ulcers aren't caused by stress. You know, now we know that they're caused by Helicobacter. And like some of these things, you know, because I've worked with people for years, and like I can so totally, you know, we'll start talking about something and they'll just break into tears, and, you know, you can see when there's still a really strong connection to things. And so I'm going to work with, you know, the anger that I have surrounding that incident, which I had really kind of just put completely out of my mind and just moved on because that's what I needed to do at the time. But I'm going to spend some time working around that and see if I can get rid of, you know, some anger and some grief and all kinds of things. And I don't know, maybe I'll, yeah, I never named my son. Maybe I'll even name my son so that I have more of a connection. You know, it's interesting because for years and years, I had phantom letdown. Some of you may not know what that means, but when you're breastfeeding, it's a very strong sensation when your milk lets down or it releases, you know, and can come out freely for the baby. And I just had phantom letdown for years and years, and I think most women do, you know, but it's you know, why would you have that? I'm talking like 10, 15 years after not having babies anymore, 20, you know, I mean, all of a sudden you just feel like this sensation, like letdown. It's like, what in the heck? I'm not breastfeeding. So maybe my little spirit baby's breastfeeding, like hanging out with me or something. I don't know what the hell's going on, but but there's something going on and I recognize it. And I guess that's the important thing.
That is truly cool, Catherine. Obviously not every aspect of it, but the way that you see that, And I just want to mention really quickly something that I think has been a great blessing for me to be aware of. I've been paying attention to Greg Braden and his stuff on Gaia, and he teaches heart-brain coherence. You know, they found that the heart is a brain, and they found, in fact, it's like 1,000,000 times more powerful than the brain, and I mean, all kinds of things like that. And you know, then he teaches just a really quick, I think it's like a 5-minute teaching on how to establish coherence. I'm sure that the heart and the brain, you know, do a lot of that on their own, but there are things that we can do to strengthen that coherence, and certainly to create a coherence between ourselves and our hearts and our brains. And I know for me, I'm sorry, I am such a crybaby. I just started out with some good healing from the first 3 days of doing that practice. And I have become a real believer in the practices that, you know, that are available to us to pick up and use to strengthen our values, our goals, our you know, the things that we're really set out here to do, that are just our thing to do. And it just saddens me there's so much resistance in the world. You know, I run into people all the time who, you know, won't even consider not going to a doctor, which uh, uh, and I oh, I lost my train of thought making all this noise. I'm sorry. Thank you.
It is an option, though, Karen. You know, it is an option. Not, I know what you're saying. I know people that there's no way that they go to the doctor for everything. Like, you know, a hangnail, they're in the emergency room, you know. But thankfully, you know, people who have been working with natural health, and, you know, like Sandy Root with her acupuncture and the other types of energy type of works that she does as well, and working with herbs and homeopathics and all these things. I don't know. I mean, I've just become, I just don't like to go to the doctors because they don't know what the hell they're doing, and they hurt more people than they help. And really, other than, I mean, obviously there's accidents that occur that you have to go to the ER. Sometimes you can't stitch yourself up or whatever. But, you know, for the majority of things that people are seeing, Western medicine is just so far off. And I think, thank God, you know, in my short 53 years or whatever, it'll be 54 this year, I've seen, thankfully, people now that don't go to, you know, that make that decision. I'm not going to the doctor. I'm going to treat it with this, or I'm going to treat it with that, or I'm not even going to treat, because I'm not even going to label it as something that needs to be treated, but I'm going to assist my body to be in perfect health with these things. You know, I mean, it is a mindset kind of thing that you have to take on. And I love Greg Brady and you know, the work that they're doing is just phenomenal. And I completely believe in, you know, instantaneous, miraculous healing. I do. And sometimes I think that's what makes it so frustrating. Because it's like, well, wait a minute. I know all this stuff can be healed in like 1 second. What the heck is going on? But, you know, it's just, I just find it really I find the body so fascinating, the way that it tries to protect us with, fat. So many people do body shaming for themselves and others because of fat, and yet fat actually, holds toxins so that they're not running around in our bloodstream and doing horrible things. And so, all these things play a really important part. The body really knows how to handle these things if we support it properly, no matter what it is. And if we can keep people out of the hospitals and off all those daggone drugs and stuff like you were talking about, Sandy, with the being on this drug for the side effect of that drug and on and on, all those things like take away from the body's natural defense and healing ability. So but like I was saying, through my years, I've certainly seen a shift. I see more people, thank God, who are turning to God's medicine. We were pretty much given everything we need to heal these amazing bodies of ours, or keep them healthy. So, yeah, but it is an option for people out there. I just want you to know it is an option. There are other ways of dealing with any injury other than, the really true emergency situations. But I would highly suggest you to start learning about these things. I know everybody here on this panel already is learning in these areas, but if you're not, start learning about herbs and start learning about homeopathics. You have the world at your fingertips through the internet, and you can learn in 3 days what it took, centuries of people working on people every day to figure out, and you can just have it all in one little ebook. So go for it. Have a great week, everybody.
Appreciate you bringing up the pain that you were experiencing in your uterus recently. I think that was a good thing, and the fact that you've struggled with pain for so long, and you're still experiencing it, and with me, I still experience this back pain, and I have pain in my legs, and and just because we know that there's something else causing it doesn't make that instantaneous miraculous cure happen. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating, particularly when we're like, God, we're acknowledging the problem. Why don't it just go away? I wish it would just work that way. And but here, I found the book that I was reading. It's The Divided Mind. I don't know if you can see this or not, but The Divided Mind, The Epidemic of Mind-Body Disorders by John E. Sarno. And in this one part here, of course, he's been talking about all these emotional things that we have in our life, the frustrations, angers, disappointments, experiences that we've had in the past. And, just like when you were talking about your experience, Catherine, is that we have all these emotions that are surrounding all of those things. And he is suggesting that one of the ways that we avoid facing those things is our body manifests this pain. And so he's talking about, our goal is to get our brain to stop producing the pain. But the reason it does it is because of the fear of having to face the emotional pain instead. And I think that's kind of a huge thing, is we like to suppress our emotions. We like to put those things down there and act like they never happened, or act like we're not experiencing it or whatever. And because we do that, it manifests in illnesses within our body. And, just like when you were talking about the ulcers being caused by that bacteria, but, the bacteria can only be effective in causing those ulcers if there's something else that is being suppressed in it. So then it's that emotional whatever that's inside of us that's it's upset. It's trying to cause us to not think about it. And so then this illness manifests within us. And, it's just like when it's sitting here talking about in this verse, only when we become sick of our sickness will we cease to be sick. But yet at the same time, for whatever reason, we tend to feel like this physical manifestation of illness and pain is somehow less than the emotional pain that we would feel. And so we feel the physical instead of the emotional. And I'm like, I think the more that we can start digging into what that actual emotional pain is that we're trying to avoid is, and it can be many facets for one thing. It's like with my back, I've kind of realized that it has to do with some of my beliefs regarding what causes the pain in the first place, but it also has things to do with frustrations and angers I had towards my mom, and that I've experienced over the years. And and it's interesting, even though as I kind of dig down into these different things that are manifesting in my body, I'm realizing some of the emotional connections that I'm having, and I don't think we realize all of them. I mean, that's a huge part of it. It's, I've noticed that, okay, I have these beliefs, I also have this anger with my mom, but the pain's not going away completely. It's still there, so there must be something else I'm not facing, or I'm not, coming to terms with, or I haven't gotten sick of yet. I don't know. That's my thoughts. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour, guys. Everybody share a final thought, and then we can wrap up for today. It's been an awesome discussion. Love this.
Popped out. Yeah, when you were talking about these things that, we think like we may know what the reason is why we have this pain, and I've been having like lately, probably started last October, like this pain that sort of starts under my sacrum and goes down my hamstrings. Just a real tightness, and nothing seems to, some treatments help, and then it comes back. And a few months after it started, I realized what it was. Like, this person in my life was literally a pain in my ass. And, we say these things like pain in the neck. He's a pain in the neck. Or she, whoever's a pain in the ass. And we actually manifested in our bodies in that way. And that's probably where the term came from, because literally that created a pain in the ass. So it's still coming. And so it got more intense over the past couple of weeks after I did a really hardcore, like, boot camp workout. And then the next day I could hardly walk. And for a few weeks it's been intense again. So I'm looking at, maybe sometimes it's even deeper than this one person. It could just be some bringing up stuff from the past too. And so it's just like, what is this? But yeah, it's funny, those analogies, because they're actually true. Pain, when we say pain in the neck and pain in the ass, like, if we have those, look at where that's in our life for sure, because we put it right in our body. But awesome to see you all, and great discussion, and looking forward to next time. I hope I can be on again next time.
That's hilarious. My uncle used to refer to me as a pain in the ass all the time. And so those words are ingrained in my mind, and I catch myself saying them, and it's almost like I hear myself say it before I say it, and I scream at myself, don't even say that. But yeah, we have to be so careful. I think I mentioned before, I have a cousin, and now I know of this other girl who had a very similar situation to my cousin. This girl has been suffering seizures for, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And she's, I want to say, high teen years, maybe last year high school or somewhere around in there, 18, 19 years old. And I mean, we're talking about full-blown grand mal seizures, just like my cousin. And with my cousin, they tried everything, and then they were actually going to do a surgery to remove part of his brain. And with this girl, I mean, her family's life, she has a single mom, and her mom's life was like turned entirely upside down. I mean, she couldn't work anymore. She had to literally stay home with this girl, and she had to be medicated 24 hours a day. I mean, completely. I mean, every doctor, every medicine, everything, they went through everything. And finally, I don't know who recommended it, but somebody recommended that the young girl see a counselor of some sort. And just like my cousin, it turned out to be a PTSD incident, or, you know, something similar. Like my cousin witnessed his friend's head getting cut off because they're in the military, and it was a helicopter blade that took his head. And then for this girl, I mean, they boiled it down to where she had like a severe anxiety, almost like to the point of one of those people, they don't want to leave their house and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? And so because of her anxiety of dealing with anything out in the public, you know, this seizure thing came up. And once she recognized what it was and what she was doing, the seizures completely went away. And I mean, that just blows my mind, because I've witnessed grand mal seizures many, many times, and it's not like something you can fake or anything like that, you know. So the mind is just so powerful. And, you know, being quite the hermit, I have to consider that aspect for myself as well, because I prefer to be, you know, by myself up on a mountaintop with my wolf. And so I have to think, am I manifesting anything that would keep me where I can isolate myself? You know, if you follow that. So anyway, sorry, I know we're way past the hour, but very interesting conversation. Love you guys.
I first heard you speak about when I asked you the question, Catherine. Then, like, your insights were so good. I was like, we need at least another hour and a half, to go over this, because all of a sudden it just went like way deeper. You know, I was already thinking about it, and then that even stirred up like so many more thoughts. So it's kind of a deep subject. There's a lot to be said about it. My goodness. I'm I've been thinking, okay, so I I should be able to get rid of this pain in the ball of my foot I've had for 2 weeks now. You know, am I just thinking about it because it's killing me? You know? So it's kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, I totally received a lot of what you guys said. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me join. It's very insightful.
Cool, Sandy. I want you to call me when it's 555. I want to. I'm feeling a little ambivalent about this, but I think I'll go ahead and throw it in. It became kind of a special insight that I gained early on in my early adulthood, that the body is the veil. You know, the veil between what happened before this life and coming into this life. We come into this life, we insert ourselves in a body, we have no memory of any of that before. And the reason that that might be a little beneficial sometimes is uh, you know, sometimes you need to look on the other side, like the uncle who called you a pain in the ass, Catherine. You know, maybe he just needs a little more attention. Who knows? But I want to throw out there for those who find this as fascinating, interesting, and insightful and helpful as those of us who are on the panel. When this comes available on YouTube, you know, there's things that you can do. You know how to share. You know how to find the URL for it. Next to where the share button is, there's a more. It'll show up there. And if you click on the transcript, now they're trying to make it a little bit harder to get to, but all you have to do is go down to where it says English, or sometimes it's Budapestian. But anyway, you straighten that out and you click on it, and it'll show you the transcript. And I tell you this because there are things that have been said today that some of you are going to want to look back at and figure, pull out the things that'll benefit you. So another thing that you can do is you can come join us. You can be part of the panel. We'd love to have you.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Karen. I always forget about the transcript. I know I'm thankful that YouTube automatically does it, and I hope that it's mostly accurate. I guess it just really depends on how clear we are speaking or how enunciated we are. I don't know if we slur our words or we have random things that we say. Who knows whether or not it sounds like gobbledygook in the transcript. I have no idea, but thank you for mentioning that. I forget about it.
Oh my God. Do you guys know how many
and
hours
for those
I have
of
spent?
you who do want to participate, there'll be a link. What? Go. Oh no.
What happened?
That's right. I only heard part of that, and then you muted yourself again. You know how many hours I've spent transcribing videos? Oh, probably way too many. Yeah, but I've read through some of the YouTube transcriptions, and sometimes they are a little bit hard to understand. But if we know what we've talked about, you can clean them up easily. It just still takes we were to type it all out, but either way. Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up for today. Okay, so if you want to participate, there'll be a link below the video. You can jump in our Facebook group. You can click to our website.